right. And there we are. We're live. What is up, everybody? This is Nick from P2W Fantasy on a live stream here today with some very, very good guests on board. I got some of the top dogs. Don't ask me how I got them to jump on the P2W stream, but they were gracious enough to jump on here. Three guys I respect a lot, and figured to go one by one, introduce each person here. And then from there, we'll just jump into the segment, which is basically us talking about some NFL headlines. And I'm going to read a reaction. It's not necessarily my reaction to the headline, but it is a potential one. And, you know, when we see these alerts in the NFL, a lot of the times guys in your league might read it and immediately, you know, go to the waiver wire or start inquiring about trades. So with a wide range of overreactions and things we do buy from what we can pick up from these NFL headlines, I thought it would be cool to get some opinions on some recent ones. So let's just kick it off here. I'll introduce first guest here, Commissioner Breeze. Commissioner Breeze is somebody from the very start who's been very supportive of P2W. Him and I have had several conversations just in the DM talking about football, talking about family and life. So I really respect that about you. Join one of your Yahoo leagues. I know you do commish a bunch of different leagues, constantly on Twitter, always with the hashtag let's talk about it. Put me with an article before, and just overall very, very personable guy on Twitter for the fantasy community. So can you just introduce yourself and let us know where we can find you and maybe what you got going on as far as the fantasy world goes?
Sure. As Nick said, I'm Commissioner Breeze. You can follow me on Twitter at MCBreeze11. Right now, I'm just doing some behind-the-scenes stuff in regards to my leagues. You know, the season is fastly approached, so now it's kind of go time. So that's pretty much all I got going on, and I'm just here to be here for the people. You know, people need positive insight, you know, about what's going on in the world of football and fantasy in particular. And here I am.
All right, and thank you for jumping on. I think it's been a long time coming, just because I've been talking to you for a very long time, or at least how long I've been on in the fantasy world. But going over to our next guest, got Mike. The Twitter world knows him as the Dynasty Dad. You got the Dynasty Dad pod and also the Dynasty Refinery going on. Writer for the Dynasty Happy Hour. You've been a guy that's helped me share my content, and is also a guy that's very active on Twitter all the time, interacting with different people of all sizes, and that's something I've respected a lot. And I'm happy to have gotten to know you a bit and saw some of your content. So can you tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter and what sort of things you have going on? Because I know you have a lot going on at this time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. And like Commissioner said, like, it's all about positivity and trying to do things. And I was more than willing to obviously work with you guys on some things, and I'm excited to be on here. You can find me on Twitter at Dynasty_DadFF. And we just released the second episode coming out here at the Dynasty Dad pod. The Dynasty Refinery is kicking back off again, so we're going to be recording it tomorrow. And like you said, writing a Dynasty Happy Hour, trying to do that as much until Tyler comes and kicks my butt for not getting it out there. But and then I rank over there as well. So a lot of stuff going on right now, jumping on as many podcasts as possible and just having fun with it.
Absolutely. We got a quick comment here. Yo, Nick, this live stream would be so much better if you were wearing an Aaron Rodgers jersey. I disagree with that as a Chicago Bears fan, but Steve from Climb the Pocket, good guy right there. Our last guest, we have Anthony here, NFL senior writer at Gridiron Experts. He is works with rankings and news for Fantasy Pros, and I did see your pin tweet, 15th in expert consensus rankings in 2019. So looking to get that beat this year, I am sure. Also have the FF Face Off with Michael. I know that's very active, and you were live earlier today, so I'm happy you were able to do it again. One of the first things, because I followed you a little bit late in the game, but one of the first things I saw with you was the mental health potathon, and I didn't know too much about it, but I did know that I just looked live at different hours of the day, and you were just continuing to go with that. So that was awesome with that. Can you tell us where we can find you and all the projects you got going on right now?
Yeah, my name is Anthony Cervino. You can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. I have my show at the FF Face-Off. But like you said, I kind of have my hand in a little bit of everything. I even do some back-end production work for some shows. So I'm really all over the place. And this time of year, it gets a little bit crazy where, officially tonight, Hard Knocks is on HBO, and that's usually the kickoff to football season for me. You got a couple episodes of Hard Knocks, and then all of a sudden, we're heading into week 1.
Right into it for sure. And I'm just happy. The first time I was trying to have you on, you had major connection issues. I think I got some weird karma with that because I was having some issues out in Illinois yesterday. But I'm glad we're all able to just jump at it and get at it here. So let's get into our topic list here. So again, for those just tuning in now, we have just some NFL headlines. I'm going to read off the headline, and then I'm just going to give you a reaction, a potential reaction. Again, not necessarily mine, but somebody's reaction. You guys tell me if it's an overreaction or if you buy it, and then why. So we'll just go with our first one here. This one is from August 10th, and it reads, Lions OC wants Kenny Gallaudet to dominate like Hopkins, Thomas. So a potential reaction that I get from this, or somebody could get from this, is Kenny Gallaudet will finish in 2020 as a top 5 wide receiver. Let's go with Mike on this one. We'll just mix up the order to stay fun here. Mike, what's your take? Overreaction or you buy it?
I think it's a slight overreaction, and I do love Kenny Gallaudet. I mean, I'm not talking bad on him, but top 5, I mean, those guys are getting heavy targets and heavy receptions. I mean, you look at the guys in the top 5, Thomas, 149 receptions, Godwin, 86, Julio, 99, Hopkins, 104, Kupp's at 94, and Galladay's all the way down at 65. And I understand, obviously, Stafford injury made a big difference there. I mean, Stafford, who I absolutely love and talk about on the pod all the time, before injury last year was the QB2. But I mean, even at that point, he was still wide receiver 11 while Stafford was playing. So wide receiver 5, unless he starts getting a lot more receptions, I mean, touchdowns are a fluky thing. And that's what propped him up at wide receiver 9 last year, was those 11 touchdowns. All
right. So slight overreaction for Mike. Commissioner Breeze, what do you got on this? I know you are, have a little bit of a bias here as a Detroit fan. Are you buying into this or overreaction?
I'm actually going to buy this. The reason why I'm going to buy this is because when I look at Kenny Gallaudet, since he's been in the league since 2017, he's gotten better each and every year. Last year, the question mark facing Kenny Gallaudet was, is he the wide receiver 1 for this team? Is it Marvin Jones? He answered the call. He now is in a position where he commands double team on each and every game that he plays. He's not somebody you want to single cover because he's a big play guy. And it don't take much for Kenny Gallaudet to make a big play down the field. Now, Matthew Stafford is going to be a key part into Kenny Gallaudet making this jump to being a top 5 wide receiver, in my opinion, because as we know, Matthew Stafford is a very underrated quarterback in the NFL who can make all the throws, just as good as anybody in football. So he's not a big target guy like Mike said, like a Michael Thomas or DeAndre Hopkins per se, but he is a guy who can make big chunk plays down the field. I think his targets and receptions will go up with a healthy Matthew Stafford for 2020. Also, I believe with the Lions acquiring DeAndre Swift from Georgia, I think that's going to infuse that run game to finally come to fruition, which will ultimately help Kenny Gallaudet. So I buy it.
All right. So we got a split right there. Anthony, you got to give us the tiebreaker between these two here.
I think it's an overreaction. And I like Kenny Gallaudet. If there is any wide receiver I have pegged for a breakout year, it's Kenny Gallaudet. And a lot of it is for the reasons that Mr. Commissioner Breeze just mentioned, with the healthy Stafford, I'm a lot more bullish on a Gallaudet breakout. But do I see him as a top 5 receiver? I believe of all the wide receiver ones, 1 to 12, Gallaudet had the fewest receptions and fewest targets, which means he was highly efficient, 6th in receiving yards, 7th completed air yards, 6 yards per target, 4 yards per reception. So he has it all. What saved Kenny Gallaudet last year was the touchdown total. Can that be repeated? He had 11 last year. I believe he led all wide receivers in that category. Even if there is a little bit of a regression, I do think a healthy Stafford is going to make up for it in terms of receptions. But if you look at these top receivers, like I could see Kenny Gallaudet finishing as maybe a top 6 or 7 receiver, but top 5, I just don't know if he's there yet.
I know that was the hard part, is like I see it like just like you, like 6 or 7. It's tough in half PPR, and there are still some of them out there, or some dinosaur leagues where people play standard. Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
But full PPR, I mean, those points come very difficult if you're not only catching 30 passes less than the guys ahead of you. So I kind of see it somewhere in between there. I'm all for it though.
Yeah, I do like the it's going to be a pass-friendly offense. We know that up front. The receptions and targets, obviously, compared to that top tier of guys this past season, I think I wrote down 41st in receptions in the league. That's got to change, obviously. When we look at, Driscoll and Blau versus Matt Stafford for a full season in 2020 with a team that's going to have guys that can supplement him, I wouldn't say it would be outrageous to say that he could be top 5. I do for sure have him in my top 10. I think he's got a lot of factors that will help him as far as game script goes. But yeah, he's got to have the receptions and targets go up. I know Marvin Jones is going to definitely be a part of that offense. As far as the yardage goes, he's good with that. The touchdowns, I don't know if he's going to repeat with that, but we saw the ceiling with him. So I think he's a guy we should consider for that. But he might just be pushing it a little bit there. So anything else with Kenny Gallaudet? No. All right. Let's move on. We got another wide receiver right here. August 7th, Texans Cooks has 0. So this is a quote from him. 0 concerns about concussion history. Reaction. Either should fantasy owners. Incoming a top 15 season for 2020. So, Anthony, why don't we start off with you? Brandon Cooks, top 15, 2020. We don't have to worry about the concussions.
I think you do have to worry about the concussions. He's had, I believe, 3 in the past 2 seasons. But Brandon Cooks is a really good football player, and I think that's going under the radar because of recency bias. He's coming off of one of the worst seasons of his career. But if you look from 2015 to 2018, he's had at least 1,082 yards and 5 touchdowns in each one of those seasons, and he did not miss a game. Last year, he missed his first game since his rookie year in 2014. I like Brandon Cooks a lot. He is not going to be DeAndre Hopkins, but for where you can get Brandon Cooks in the PPR league, he's almost a no-brainer. I believe it's a 6th or 7th round pick.
All right.
Mike, how about you?
I'm in complete agreement. Everybody throws out that he's injury prone, but just
he's not.
The concussions. Exactly. He's missed 1 game, and he's just a staple those first couple years. I mean, it was set it and forget it. I mean, he, 4 different teams, 1,000 yards. I mean, he was just phenomenal. I have him slated as wide receiver 18, so it's close, but I feel like you can get him so much cheaper. I mean, Dynasty, you can get him for a 2nd round pick. And in redraft, like he said, that 6th, 7th round, where I'm all about this year going heavy RB early because the wide receivers are so deep. That's where you can draft Brandon Cooks as your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and he's going to have some fringe wide receiver 1 weeks for you. And he could easily be in that 15 to 18 range, no problem, as long as he's on the field.
All right, Commissioner Breeze, how about you? What's your thoughts about Brandon Cooks going into 2020 here?
I like Brandon Cooks, the player, but the concussions, that's a concern for me. In the last 6 years, he's had 5, known concussions. That's a red flag. I mean, for where he's going in draft, the upside is there. But my concern with Brandon Cooks going into a new team and a new offense is the rapport he's going to have with Deshaun Watson. I like, Will Fuller a little bit more than him just because he's already had that chemistry established with Deshaun Watson. But I wouldn't blame anybody if you want to take a shot on Brandon Cooks, as your wide receiver 3, because he is pretty cheap, in drafts right now. But all in all, I think it's a slight overreaction for me because that's something that I would factor if I'm in the 6th or 7th round and I'm looking at my wide receiver 3. If I see, a Brandon Cooks, if I see a Hollywood Brown there or somebody along those lines, I'm going to take the shot on Hollywood Brown, who offers a little bit more upside, but they both are relatively good values in drafts.
It's good points all around by you guys. I think in Dynasty, people might have a slight concern with the long-term durability if there was another knock like that. I know, I played college soccer, right? And, I had a concussion early on, and then for the next 2 years, I'm wearing headgear just to be protective of it. So, it is a serious injury. I think there is a stigma, though, because he's not a guy that's banged up every year because of anything else, really. And, you hear these comments of guys that say, hey, he's one bad hit from, his career being done. And, I mean, can't you really say that for almost anybody in the league? One bad hit from being done. It's a weird push-pull as far as that goes.
I'm more worried about Sterling Shepard's history more than Brandon Cooks. Let's just put it that way.
But would you say that you hear that narrative for Cooks more than Shepard, or no?
Maybe recently, but I feel like a guy like Sterling Shepard, I mean, he misses significant time, like chunks of games with his concussions, and Brandon Cooks only missed 2 games last year.
Yeah.
I feel like you hear about it so much because Brandon Cooks was so prolific before, starting to get some of those concussions. And I feel like that's made it a buy window where if you're willing to take the risk, you get a nice return there.
I mean, for what it's worth, all the times that Brandon Cooks has been traded was for a first-round pick, I believe. So that's what the NFL front offices think of Brandon Cooks as a football player.
Yeah.
Can he get any luckier with where he goes? I mean, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson. I mean, you see guys get traded and you think, wow, it's going to really drop off. But I mean, those are some top-notch quarterbacks to play.
And then in the same breath, then you have Allen Robinson going from Blake Bortles to,
It's like this right now. Come on, we're not even on. But with Cooks, I'm looking at Fantasy Pros yearly finishes: 2018 wide receiver 13, 2017 wide receiver 15, 2016 wide receiver 10, 2015 wide receiver 13. So the guy's obviously super talented. He's a vertical threat. Having 150 targets just kind of hanging out there for whoever to grab. And the Texans, I love that opportunity for him. And I love the talent. So, long term, do you worry about these things? Maybe. But if I'm trying to win this next season, I don't think his price is that high. I think he's a guy you try to go after and grab because I'm huge on guys that have the opportunity for volume. And I think that's going to be the case for him.
Commissioner said it great. I mean, he was talking about Hollywood Brown, and that's one of my guys. But when you can take your wide receiver 3 as a wide receiver 1 on somebody's offense, you got to do that all day.
Agreed. All right. Let's move on to the Texans still. And I didn't plan that, but that's how it went. August 6th, David Johnson says he and Duke will be, quotes, lethal threats for Texans. Reaction: both David Johnson and Duke Johnson will be fantasy relevant each week. And I guess I mean by fantasy relevant is that you can start both of them maybe in a running back, in a flex position, whatever the case is. So fantasy relevant each week. We'll start with Commissioner Breeze on this. Do you think both guys will be fantasy relevant in 2020?
This is kind of a tough question to answer. I can see it and not see it at the same time. When I look at the Houston Texans going into this season, it's almost like looking at a brand new team, rather, because when you take DeAndre Hopkins away from this team, that's a huge dynamic that's gone from this offense. And you bring in David Johnson, who is a good pass catching running back. Those 150 targets that you mentioned a moment ago, that's, there for the taking for the Texans. David Johnson and Duke Johnson both going to get some of those targets. So I can see where they can be fantasy relevant each week because, I mean, David Johnson is not much of a between the tackles guy as far as, run efficiency. He's more of a pass catching at this point of his career. So it's opportunity there for them to be fantasy relevant, in my opinion.
I just want to add a quick comment. Watson does throw to running backs a decent amount. And 5-wide football, good guy. That's Dan. But I don't love either. He had the up and the down right there, all in one. Mike, what do you think about this?
I don't see either of them being all that fantasy relevant. I mean, they traded for Duke Johnson 2 years ago, and Duke Johnson in Cleveland was, 54 receptions, 64 receptions, 74 receptions, and then they didn't even utilize him. Like with a good offensive coordinator, being able to put them both on the field at the same time and try to spread out. But they're talking about trying to feed the ball to Randall Cobb. They're saying Randall Cobb's going to have a breakout year, with heavy volume, and I'm like, that's like saying Jamison Crowder is going to, like it's that kind of receiver where you're not going to get anything explosive. Mm-hmm. David Johnson, I feel like is going to be a back end RB2 with some volume, and get those kind of looks. He's kind of fallen off though. I mean, he looked like a shell of himself, at like 3.2 yards per carry, 3.6% on big run rates, and his juke rate and everything was all career lows. I mean, obviously there was some injury there, but when he was healthy again, it was Drake's job, so it was one of the most perplexing trades I've ever seen in my life, David Johnson going there. I think if this was 2017, David Johnson and Duke Johnson sounds wonderful, but for me, I'm trying to avoid them both right now. I'll take Duke Johnson at the, much cheaper price where Dynasty, you might be able to get him for a third.
Yeah, I think just for myself, and then I'll have Anthony go. I think for Duke, it's always like this pretty PPR narrative that, he's going to come in and steal all these targets and receptions. And this past season with Carlos Hyde running the ball, 44 receptions. I mean, that's not like the James White-esque where he's coming in and just grabbing balls all day. I think his ceiling's going to be limited. I don't think we look at him as a guy that's going to be like a massive change of pace guy for David Johnson and also gets all these targets. It will be interesting to see if they just say to David Johnson, hey, you're going to be running the rock. You're going to try to be our red zone guy, 3-down back, whatever the case is. And then Duke's going to have the targets out of the backfield. Or if they say, hey, David Johnson, 80 reception guy in your past, 50 receptions here. He's had these seasons where he has that ability. Are they going to say, hey, both of you guys can catch the ball? And in that case, Duke Johnson's, droppable almost. Because he's not really going to carry the ball that much. So for me, David Johnson's very interesting. Duke Johnson, not so much, even to the degree that if he's floating around, I don't think I really want to grab him. But that's just me. What do you think, Anthony?
On the Texans as a whole, I don't think they lose as much with DeAndre Hopkins. If you put it in perspective, sure, you lose an elite receiver, one of the best in the game, maybe a top 5 receiver. But look what they brought in. Brandon Cooks, we talk about how effective he was. Will Fuller, when healthy, is a big playmaker. Randall Cobb is probably the best slot receiver we've had in Houston since who? Like Andre Ellington? That's not saying much.
Yeah.
They have a really talented tight end room. There's not a de facto tight end one, but both Fells, if you want to rope in Jordan Thomas and the other guy into it, I'm drawing a blank who their third tight end is. And then you have these running backs. We know what Duke can do. He's extremely explosive. He's your prototypical satellite back. Number 2 in yards per touch. He seems like a top 5 yards per touch guy every year, but he does it on a shade over 105, 110 touches. David Johnson, he's going to be spoon-fed the ball. This is a guy who a few years ago had 120 targets back with Bruce Arians. In 2018, 76 targets. I still think he could be a shell of that player. We're never going to get the top 5 back that we thought David Johnson would have been with the Arizona Cardinals. But you're drafting him in the middle of the 3rd round, and I do believe he can return fringe RB1 upside when it's all said and done. This offense is going to be better than what people think, despite losing DeAndre Hopkins.
All right, very, very good points all around from you guys there. Talked a lot of Texans, so kind of want to take a step out of that direction now. We'll go to the Falcons for this next one here. August 5th, Falcons wide receiver Calvin Ridley, and is quoted, "I should be elite this year." Reaction: the Falcons will produce 2 top 10 wide receivers in 2020. Just a few numbers here, and I'm not saying my stance on this, but weeks 1 through 14 this past season when healthy, wide receiver 14. Austin Hooper departs and leaves 97 targets. Obviously, Hayden Hurst is there now. You have the Gurley dynamic as well. What do we think about the Falcons producing 2 top 10 wide receivers? And Anthony, we'll start with you this time.
I think it's possible, and I think that is why Calvin Ridley's ADP is so high. And for me, it's high. This is a guy who last year didn't break 100 targets. What did he finish? 18th in fantasy points per game. If you pull up Calvin Ridley and Michael Gallup on Player Profiler, they're extremely comparable. But the reason why you're paying more for Ridley is because of this expected breakout. And I don't believe this breakout's going to happen while Julio Jones is still Julio Jones. They brought in Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst has been back and forth from Jacksonville, where his home is, to Atlanta, training with Matt Ryan. They say he's a little bit faster version of Austin Hooper at the tight end position. And he's a former first-round pick. He has the pedigree. I still continue to think that it's Julio Jones. Calvin Ridley is going to be more touchdown dependent. And then you have your tight end as a 3 in this offense. So I am not buying into they're going to produce 2 wide receiver 1 narratives.
All right, Commissioner Breeze, are you with Anthony on this, or are you with Calvin Ridley taking off to top 10 territory?
I'm with Anthony on this. Again, we like Calvin Ridley as a player. He's a great route runner. He can stretch the field. It's a luxury to be able to play opposite of Julio Jones. But in order for Calvin Ridley to finish as a top 10 wide receiver, he needs to be on the field for all 16 games. I know last year he missed 3 games, but that won't help your case if you miss 3 games this year, hoping to finish as top 10 wide receivers. With the vacated targets that's there for the team this year, sure, he should receive over 100 targets, but again, he needs to be available on the field to have an opportunity to potentially be in the top 10. But I still have other receivers that I prefer over him to have a shot at the top 10, like a Robert Woods and Adam Thielen even, to usurp Calvin Ridley. But again, I love him as a player, but I'm with Anthony. I'm not buying this one.
We got a couple comments. 5Y did say nope, they threw a ton last year with no real running game. It didn't produce 2 top 10 wide receivers. And then the big Sneak 77. Yeah, I think Matt Ryan threw the ball more than anyone last year.
Yeah, the Falcons were the number 1 team in pass plays per game.
Very interesting. So there was obviously a big opportunity there for Ridley. Mike, what are your thoughts here?
I agree. I mean, I feel like he falls into that like 12 to 14 range. I wanted to go against what you guys are saying just to be the contrarian, but it's 258 vacated targets. I mean, is a huge number. Obviously, what I gather the most there is, Julio's going to eat. And I feel like the only way Ridley gets in that top 10 range is if he catches 12 to 14 touchdowns. He does not. He's a great route runner, but he does not put up a ton of PPR points. He's been propped up by a lot of touchdowns. What I'm seeing from that Atlanta offense is I think they're going to run Todd Gurley into the ground, and I'm loving Todd Gurley this year.
Yeah, so what I grasp, the phrase I grasp often here is touchdown dependent. Julio Jones obviously doesn't disappear. When we look at guys we probably consider in that top 10 range, I'd say the only 2 guys that some people have in there that are on the same team is Evans and Godwin. A lot of these other guys are swallowing up like a massive amount of volume. And he's going to have that cap and ceiling because of Julio Jones, even with them passing the ball so often. I know with Hooper being gone, there's a lot of question marks. Like, does that bump Ridley? Is Russell Gage more involved in this offense? Is Hayden Hurst? Some think Hayden Hurst is going to come in and take all of the targets. There's all these different narratives that happen. I just think like top 10 wide receiver, you need to have the volume on the team. And if the game script and the offense is willing to pass the ball and needs to pass the ball that much, you may have that opportunity. But kind of like what you said, Mike, I think somewhere between that like 12 to 14, maybe 15 range for me. I think he'd have to have a lot of things fall into his favor in order for him to be a top 10 wide receiver.
And if we look at the top 12 receivers, let's say wide receiver one tier last year, look at the names that we have to assume are going to make a comeback. You know, Odell Beckham Jr. can be there. Juju can be there in the back end. Tyreek Hill's usually a top 5 to 6 guy, and so is Devontae Adams. So there's 4 guys right there that we might have to factor in to these finishes. So I cannot put Calvin Ridley into that top 10 conversation.
Let me. I'm just gonna read off. I'm gonna read off a couple names. Just tell me just your answer here. So, talking top 10, better opportunity. Calvin Ridley, and you mentioned it, Juju. Let's just go around. You guys can just chime in.
Juju.
Yeah, I'm Juju.
Juju.
All right.
I'm not even a Juju guy. It's Juju.
All right. There you go. Enough said. What about Commissioner Breeze said this? What about Calvin Ridley or Robert Woods?
Oh, it's Sir Robert Woods all day. Like, I've been writing articles about him. There's not anybody. I mean, now that people are catching on, but no one's more underrated than Allen Robinson or Robert Woods. I mean, those guys are the cheapest wide receiver ones you can get.
How about you guys?
Woods.
Anthony.
Yeah, I'm also on the Woods train, especially if he has a positive touchdown regression. I mean, I don't know exactly where he finished. He finished as the wide receiver 12 in fantasy points per game. He only scored 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, it helps when you get like a 14 target share in a game every night.
Yeah.
Well, when they switched to 12 personnel, though, I mean, those final, several games there, him and Higbee were killing it.
Mm-hmm.
How about let's do two more quick ones, and we'll look at 2 rookies from last year. First one, AJ Brown or Calvin Ridley?
Ridley for me.
Ridley for Commissioner Breeze. Oh man, this wasn't scripted. I'm just
this one's
this list, and I'm like throw it out there. Why not?
Redraft. I think I'm still going to take. I'm going to take AJ Brown just for the volume potential there.
Are we still on who has a better chance to finish as a top 10 receiver?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna reluctantly, and I love AJ Brown. Like, if you put AJ Brown on the Chiefs or one of these high octane passing offenses, he'll be a top 5 receiver. He's that talented and efficient. But I'll still put him over Ridley here. But I'm worried about volume. I'm legitimately worried about volume with AJ Brown. It can go either way.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Maybe it's an easy one. Some people are super high on him, though. Calvin Ridley or Terry McLaurin? Anybody?
I love McLaurin, but I'm going to take Ridley.
All right.
Just for the offense. I mean, I feel like Terry McLaurin being that, the ipso facto wide receiver 1 there. But, I mean, it's tough. That's a good one.
I'm also going to go Calvin Ridley here. And I think what's missing for McLaurin is a quarterback. He needs a quarterback.
You talking Haskins or Kyle Allen?
Somebody other than what they have.
Oh, okay. All right.
Like, I'd be happier if it was Alex Smith
on one leg. Yeah.
Right.
His comeback story is amazing, though. I mean, it's ridiculous.
How about you, Commissioner Breeze? Might have lost him. Commish, can you hear us? No, he's had some connection issues. All right, we just move on to the next one. We'll try one more time. Can you hear us, Commissioner? I don't. Yeah, he's.
I can hear you now.
All right, perfect. McLaurin or Calvin Ridley?
I'll go with Ridley just because McLaurin is in a low passing volume offense. I love the talent, but Ridley is in a better situation to have a chance to get the top 10 just due to the heavy passing offense the Falcons is.
All right. So that was pretty fun there. Just kind of random. Let's move on to a quarterback this time. August 4th, Derek Carr has something to prove. In quotes, I'm tired of being disrespected. Reaction. Carr will have his career best fantasy season with the added arsenal. So obviously we know they had Henry Ruggs, Bryan Edwards, Nelson Aguilar. Who's the other rookie I'm missing off the top of my head? Lynn Bowden. I mean,
Bowden.
Yeah, you're adding these pieces to the Raiders this past season. He had a 70% completion rate with 24 drops, which actually was the third most in the league. I'm just going to read off a couple more of my notes just so you guys can talk this one out. 2019 QB 17, 2018 QB 18, 2017 QB 19. Back in the 2016, 2015 years, he had pretty good seasons. Do we see this big spike in Derek Carr by chance? Is he a guy we're looking to draft? I guess the reaction versus or overreaction versus buy is he going to have one of his best fantasy seasons this year? And we can start with Mike on that.
I believe he is. He was definitely a bargain in Scott Fishbowl because of the way they set things up with completions. But I mean, Derek Carr had his best completion percentage, best yardage of his career, and now he gets some actual weapons. I mean, they were so void of talent last year on the offensive side of the ball. I think Josh Jacobs is going to be a little bit more involved in the pass game. Bowden, I love Bryan Edwards, Ruggs. I mean, I feel like the offense is getting some exciting pieces where I don't think he's really going to finish much above. I mean, you said what, QB 17 was his best. You know, I can't see
3 seasons. Yeah,
I can't see too much higher than QB 15. I have him as a guy who I love as my third quarterback in a super flex, but I'm not ready to put him in that, top 15 area.
I'll have I'll let you finish this one, but I'll have another side piece of this one here. Do you see any world where Marcus Mariota steps in?
I don't, but
Okay.
I was like, I mean, we had the guys from Superflex Super Show on the other day, and they were ripping me apart because they think it's Mariota as soon as Carr, tends to look bad. I feel like Carr's got a chip on his shoulder, and he knows that they brought somebody else in there. He's going to be more motivated than ever. I feel like he finishes the season, and then we'll see where things go.
Yeah, it's interesting to see him kind of voice the chip on his shoulder because usually it's one of his brothers all the time. It seems like. But Commissioner Breeze, what's your thoughts here on Derek Carr?
During the off season, the Raiders is a team that I've been kind of following a little bit closely under the radar, the moves they've made. And, as the season draws closer, I have risen on Derek Carr, but it's, reasons that.
Think we lost him. Nope, he might be back there. Maybe we'll have Anthony. Why don't you jump in while he gets his connection going here?
Car's tough.
I'm sorry.
Right?
I'm having a connection issue.
No, you're good. You're all right.
I'm sorry. I'm back. I believe, with the added weapons like you stated, Nick, for Derek Carr going into this season, I think his numbers can go up. It always helps, to have an effective running game with Josh Jacobs. I think, he's the centerpiece of the Raiders' offense going into this season. I think going to help Derek Carr a lot.
All right, I'm gonna send him a quick message on that. Anthony, I'll let you jump in. I'll have him muted. I'll text him in here. But go ahead with what you were saying.
No, I believe Carr can have his most productive fantasy season. I just don't know if John Gruden believes that Derek Carr can have a productive season. And I'm not talking about fantasy. I just don't believe John Gruden believes in Derek Carr. Dating back to the relationship on Hard Knocks and last offseason, something seems off there. And if your head coach isn't going to show trust in you, I mean, look what happened to Jameis Winston. I feel like Derek Carr is always going to be looking over his shoulder unless there's something going on behind the scenes we don't know about. But you guys mentioned all the weapons that they brought in. I had said on my show, the FF Face-Off, when we were talking about a Josh Jacobs versus Miles Sanders debate, that all of a sudden, if you look at the personnel they brought in, there's a lot of mouths to feed in Oakland, and Mike almost fell off his chair, but now he's starting to buy in. They have some really exciting rookies. You have Jacobs. They brought in, for what it's worth, they brought in Jason Witten, who's going to be a chain mover. You have Waller, Tyrell Williams. We didn't even mention on this show now, when we were talking about the receivers, Hunter Renfrow, who's probably going to be their wide receiver 4 with Henry Ruggs slotted to start in the slot this year. So there's a lot of weapons here. It's just up to Derek Carr to get it going. I just can't, in like a traditional redraft league, you're not touching Derek Carr. Even in a super flex, I'll buy him as a lottery ticket, as a fringe QB2, QB3. But I just don't trust Derek Carr in fantasy. He's a better NFL quarterback than he is a fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, the disrespect there is for sure. I mean, I just did a draft, pros versus Joes on FFPC, and I took him as my QB3. I think he was the 35th quarterback taken off the board. So I mean, all the starters are gone, and we're starting to take young upside guys, and that's kind of where everybody's feeling on him. So there's definitely some disrespect on Derek Carr, though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things kind of mesh in that offense. If some guys are going to be super relevant right away. I mean, Tyrell Williams started the season this past year, in his first 5 games had 5 touchdowns. So that's like this weird dynamic to throw into these rookie guys there. I'm kind of like with what you have been saying, Mike, too, is super flex. He might be your QB3 that you're comfortable with having for maybe a week here and there. I'm not super concerned about the Mariota factor, but he's not a ghost there if things are going wrong. But I think he's got, and I don't want to say weapons because we got yelled at on the last podcast for somebody saying weapons. But I think he's got a better supporting cast than he has in the past. He's a pretty conservative quarterback. I think that goes along with what Anthony was saying. He's a guy that's going to have a good completion rate, but he's not going to be the guy, fantasy related, that's gunning balls down the field all game and throwing 5 or 6 touchdowns here and there. But I'm not buying into the narrative myself that he's going to go through the roof. But I think he should be set up to be more successful. Commissioner Breeze, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, everything looks good too. And any other comments about Derek Carr?
Nothing else to add.
All right, sounds good. Let's move on to our next point here. We have August 4th, Nikhil Harry among receivers poised for a year 2 breakout in 2020. Reaction. And I actually read this on Twitter. I don't have an app, and I wouldn't do that to anybody here. But Harry will finish better in fantasy than anyone from his rookie class. Just a couple of quick notes here. Going down the list from how that draft went, obviously doesn't, play into what happened last year. But second wide receiver off the board, Marquise Brown went in the first round, pick 25. Nikhil Harry went first round 32. They were the only 2 in the first round. And then down the list went Debo, A.J. Brown, Mecole Hardman, DK, all in the second round, Deontay Johnson in the third round, McLaurin in the third round. Couple other factors that might be out there is the competition for targets was something that was brought up that I saw online. Obviously Julian Edelman there, not a ton else going on. I don't think. I think Cam has been a factor for some, raising Nikhil Harry up their list versus Jarrett Stidham. Off of the draft profile, good at PFF. I was reading an article by them, and they were noting that after the catch, he's a monster, makes the tough catches, good size for separation, good in the middle of the field, but the speed was a little bit of an issue, and the actual separation without using his body was a little bit iffy. Just things I read, throwing it out there. What do you think? We'll start with Anthony on this one. Nikhil Harry, do you see him being better for I'll start it. 1, do you see him being better than all the other rookies from this past year? And 2, if not, where do you see him in that mix maybe?
I mean, maybe he'll be better than like the 6th and 7th round rookies.
Oh, all right. That's a good starting point.
But I mean, for where you can draft and Nikhil Harry, sure, 13th round, you're taking lottery ticket shots on a lot of these guys anyway. I just can't buy into it. Bill Belichick, everybody has a flaw. If there's a flaw for Bill Belichick, it's drafting wide receivers. It just doesn't work. I believe Julian Edelman's the only receiver he's ever drafted to have a 1,000-yard season. The next guy to come close was Deion Branch. If you look at some of these names that he's drafted, even in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, they're out of the league very quickly. So I'm going to bring history in it. I know people hate when I do that, but you have to factor that in at a time like this. At least I do, and I can't buy into Nikhil Harry.
All right. So do you see, just as a side question here, do you see him being a guy you can plug into your lineup maybe on a bye week in the flex, or is he a guy that's just like a stash and see how he turns out?
He's a stash and see how it turns out.
All right. Mike, do you have some different thoughts on Nikhil Harry here?
I'm okay with him on your dynasty roster, but I'm not touching him in redraft. I mean,
right.
Cam Newton does throw a lot of, the issue with Nikhil Harry has always been separation. Even at the combine, he proved that his speed was good enough, but it's been separation. He can't get separated. And Cam Newton does, in 2018 had one of the highest percentages of tight windows throws. I mean, look at what Cam Newton's had with Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess, and he's never really had those, guys that really separate. So he's willing to make those kind of throws, but I mean, Nikhil Harry's got the talent there, but you can't put him over Brown, Metcalf, McLaurin, Hollywood, Debo. I mean, you can't even put him over Mecole Hardman, in my opinion, because of the offense that he's in and the way they play the game. So I love Nikhil Harry coming out. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen.
All right. Commissioner Breeze, what are your thoughts here?
I got to agree with the guys here. I mean, when you look at the New England Patriots going into this season, it's a lot going on here. Tom Brady is gone. Gronk, he was already gone, but, he's gone as well. So Cam Newton, how much does he really have left? Some people are still questioning if he still got it as a quarterback. Sony Michel, he's more likely going to be starting the season on PUP. What's the run game going to look like? What is the passing game is going to look like? It's just too many question marks for me. And as a result of that, like Anthony and Mike said, I can't put him above, the Hollywoods, DK Metcalfs of the world. He's an unknown. Talking about Nikhil Harry, he's an unknown right now. It's the excitement is there for what he could potentially do with Cam Newton because he like big body wide receivers, but again, we haven't seen it come to fruition. So it's just too many question marks for me. So I gotta pass on this as well.
I think it's touchdown dependent again too, because there's not a lot of red zone targets there in New England. I mean, Edelman does really well in the red zone, but there's no big body target there aside from him. So if he's gonna be relevant, he's gonna have to catch 10 touchdown passes. And he's, the college production was there, but he just struggled, obviously being on the PUP list to start out those first 8 games. And Tom Brady essentially is like, get him off the field. Tom Brady wasn't trusting him, and that makes it tough. Redraft, it can't do it.
I think I've read into like so many different narratives about how like the Patriots are going to run their offense this year. Even back, I mean, when Stidham was their quarterback, they were talking about before all these opt-outs, the defense is still going to be good, and they're going to try to pound the rock with Sony and all these different guys that they have on this, on their backfield, and still dump it off to James White. And, these 2 guys that they draft, the 2 tight ends, Asiasi and Keene. I had people contribute to an article I wrote giving me their top list of tight ends. I think it was just 5 before the NFL draft, and there was neither one of these guys on that list, and they just kind of pop out of nowhere. You read their bios, and they're good blockers that can also catch. And then you have the dynamic now. Lamar Miller is there because of Sony being on the PUP, and Damian Harris truthers are out there. And then, Edelman still got it. Edelman's washed up and he keeps dropping balls all the time. There's just so many different things going on, and I have zero idea how it's going to run. I think Nikhil Harry is, again, like you guys noted, interesting guy in a dynasty format. Even with Cam, like his style of play is probably going to be a bit different. He's not going to be the same elusive guy, I don't think, running the ball as much as he has in the past. He might be more of a pocket guy. I don't know. It's just so many question marks to ask. And I think with Nikhil Harry, again, I am a huge truther, or however you want to note it, for opportunity. So is there a good opportunity for him there? Absolutely. I mean, I don't think Jacoby Myers or whoever else is on that roster is going to really, push him for targets or anything like that. But again, just way too many question marks, like you guys are saying.
I don't even know how much stock somebody, just brought up the Patriots defense. they lost their top 4 linebackers, are not going to play for them this year. Hightower opted out. Eldon Roberts, Van Noy, and Jamie Collins are all playing elsewhere. That middle of the defense, usually a Belichick strength, is completely gutted.
Yep. Just it's like every week I think there's a new Patriots dynamic, and
I have them pegged for 6 wins, and people won't think I'm nuts, but
you're probably getting a lot of hate for that.
I've been a Bills fan since I was like in middle school. So I'm an Eagles guy now, but I was a huge Bills fan the whole way across, and I would be all for it. It's Josh Allen season. I wanted them. They were so close last year. I wanted them to dethrone the Patriots while Brady was still there, and it was close. But
I think
now it feels cheap, right?
I think he was like rubbing the crystal ball and just seeing things explode a little bit. So I think he's happy to be out of there too. So interesting. But I mean, it's a type of team that out of nowhere they'll find a way to be successful. I don't know. It's the Patriots, but listen,
they even moved on from Gostowski, and his leg alone was probably responsible for a couple of close wins every year. I feel like, even Vegas, who has the Patriots, slated to win that division, I don't really disagree with the bookmakers a lot, but I just don't see it this year.
I read some stuff too that with all these opt-outs and all these weird things going on, it's just I think somebody made a video with Bill Belichick just being on the phone with these guys opting out and just like boosting them, like, yeah, this is the best decision for you, like all this stuff. Maybe it's just that season, rebuild season, get the high draft pick. I don't know. It's weird dynamics. We got 2 more, so I want to get through these because I know we're 50 minutes in. We'll try to get just these last 2 in. August 1st, Kevin Stefanski on tight ends. We believe in David, and that's obviously David Njoku. Reaction, Austin Hooper and David Njoku will both be startable tight ends in 2020 for fantasy. So I guess could we look at them as the Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert type of players? Obviously not finishing that high, but is that the reaction we can buy into? Commissioner Breeze, we'll start with you. Could you start both of these guys as your tight end in fantasy?
I cannot. Reason being, last year when we saw Kevin Stefanski run the plays for Minnesota, their tight ends were used more so as blockers and help, in pass and run protection. And Austin Hooper was in Atlanta as a volume guy. You moving into a team that's obviously going to game plan to be run heavy, which is not going to help the tight ends at the end of the day. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, they're going to get theirs. And, of course, Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, they're going to get theirs. So what does that leave any room for left when you talk about David Njoku and Austin Hooper? I mean, maybe if you're in a 2 tight end league, you can maybe take a look at them. But if in a 1 tight end league that most people play in, I'm not touching either one of them. I mean, it's just I just don't see the value in plugging them in as a even as a flex, in my opinion, because it's so many other. I mean, I could look at a Blake Jarwin who offers more upside. Somebody, even a Chris Herndon, who a lot of people are down on from the previous season. He has more upside, in my opinion. So I'm staying away from Austin Hooper and David Njoku.
And I got a couple comments here. Man, you got Anthony and McBreeze on, and Dynasty Dad.
Hey, thanks for adding me in there.
All lineup. All right, that's Detroit BC, our friend Chris. He's been on the pod a bunch of times. Let's go with Mike on this. Is there anywhere where you can start both guys?
David Njoku came in the league so raw. I mean, but in I believe it was 2018. I mean, he did have over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, but there's no scenario where he eats in this offense. I mean, Austin Hooper is going to be the tight end one there. I'm going to disagree a little bit with Commissioner Breeze. I think Austin Hooper is a fair back end tight end one for you. If you're not getting those top 3 guys, wait. And I think that's more of the thing is either you agree or disagree that Austin Hooper is worthy of that. If you don't get those top 3 or 4 tight ends, wait as long as possible, because the tight ends maybe 11 to 18 are like right there in line, and you can load up on those kind of guys. Hooper, apparently stayed with Baker Mayfield all summer. He was staying over at his house, whatever that means.
Might be a good or bad thing. I don't know how to read that one, but
as long as they didn't go to the Cheesecake Factory, we're all good.
Yeah.
But I mean, Baker seems a lot more motivated, but I mean, with Hooper again, he's not going to get a big volume. I mean, maybe 50 catches, at most. So he could be a red zone target like they did with Kyle Rudolph in the Stefanski system, but that's about what you're looking at there.
LQ liked that comment, I think, about the Cheesecake Factory. Anthony, what are your thoughts here?
This might be the unpopular thing to say, but, the question is, can both of these guys be startable in fantasy? You can make the case that neither one of them are startable. With Austin Hooper's ADP right now as a tight end 13 in 12-team leagues, he's not even being drafted as a starter right now. He's going to regress volume-wise. But where there is some upside for both of these players is how good Baker Mayfield was in his rookie year. In 12 and 13 personnel, he had his most success, especially in the red zone. So I think Njoku more so Austin Hooper, they have the touchdown upside. But in terms of being able to start these guys every week, I mean, just going down the line, I'd rather start a Dallas Goedert or a Jack Doyle and maybe even a Blake Jarwin, depending on the matchup, over either one of them.
Yeah, I think people looked at the Stefanski tight end friendly thought and looked at Rudolph and Irv Smith. They like split receptions and target. Right. I don't think that really helped you every week is having one of those guys as your starter. But with Austin Hooper going as like the number one guy for X amount of weeks, he was top 3 for X amount of weeks. There's like this thought that you as an owner of him, I mean, I might be a bit concerned now that he's not going to get that 97 target share he did in Atlanta, and then you're going to add Njoku to the mix, and I think it's interesting to want them to run those sets, but I don't think that they're going to do it as much as people hope that they would. I guess interesting dynasty dynamic too to this whole piece. Harrison Bryant, John Mackey Award, top tight end in the country. 65 catches for over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. The Browns drafted this guy too. And I think long-term, he's a guy they obviously wanted. I mean, he used to be an offensive tackle, good blocker, great hands. But just looking at 2020 specifically, I don't see the narrative where OBJ is getting a good target share. Jarvis Landry is getting a good target share. Kareem Hunt's coming out of the backfield, catching balls. And then you add 2 tight ends to that mix. I just can't buy into it. And I think, like you guys have said, I heard the name Chris Herndon. I heard Jack Doyle. You can throw out dart throws like Jay Sternberger might have a better opportunity as the tight end 1 than Njoku does as the tight end 2 on his own team. So I'm not buying into it. Anthony, looks like you want something. You got something else in your mind.
You kind of covered exactly what I was going to say. Austin Hooper had the high volume in Atlanta, and they were the number 1 team in pass plays per game. But if you go over to the Browns, I believe they were middle of the pack in terms of their run-pass ratio. And they have very similar, if you look at Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, and then it was Hooper. Well, you have Beckham, you have Landry. Kareem Hunt's a better receiver out of the backfield than anything they had at running back in Atlanta, and then you have David Njoku. So you have a lot of mouths to feed. Use that cliche again in Cleveland, and they're passing about. They're a middle of the pack compared to the number 1 passing team. The volume is just not going to be there for Austin Hooper.
And I got a couple comments here.
Cleveland should have freed Njoku.
Yeah, should have freed him with the Browns convincing Njoku in quotes there to stay and have him commit. I wonder how that went. Mike, Dr. Football is here. Njoku first rounder, hard to ignore his athleticism. I mean, we could say the same for a guy like OJ Howard, is extremely athletic, but
same draft.
Yeah. I mean, they were just pumping out the crazy linebacker built tight ends, but yeah, I can't buy into that one. Let's get into our last one just because we're approaching the hour mark here. This is a touchy subject for some people, so may want to be careful with this. But August 1, Gardner Minshew aims to solidify spot as Jaguars franchise quarterback. And the reaction, the Jaguars do not draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of the 2021 NFL draft. So I guess this is going to be your thoughts as to the approach of the Jaguars moving forward for their franchise, especially with this draft coming up. And you got guys like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, and there's a couple other names that keep popping up and down. What do we think about this? We'll start with Anthony on this.
Excuse me. The Jaguars are in a very good position, believe it or not. With all the draft capital they acquired, I believe going into April's draft, they had about 17 or 19 picks total between this year and next year. And if you look at Jacksonville now, you have Gardner Minshew going to his 2nd year in the NFL. He's on his rookie deal. If he plays well, and Jacksonville's not a train wreck, and this Gardner Minshew hype and all of the intangibles, it ends up working out, we could be looking at a Jaguar team that could be building around their 2nd year or 3rd year quarterback, whatever he's going to be in 2021, with all of these draft picks. But if Gardner Minshew doesn't work out this year, they're in position probably to draft the top quarterback off the board, because Jacksonville will be a train wreck. So I actually like the position that they're in, and with nobody, I don't even know, and I'm pretty intact with depth charts. I can't even tell you who their number 2 quarterback is, which tells me as long as Gardner Minshew is breathing, he's going to be playing football for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year.
All right. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we all want to believe in Minshew mania, and that's a great point that obviously that Anthony brought up there. If it can work, absolutely. I mean, they're in great position there. If you take Gardner Minshew's stats and you put him up there with, if you put him next to the Kylers and Daniel Jones and I mean, if I put all the stats in front of you and asked you to pick out which one, most people wouldn't be able to. I mean, 3,271 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 picks, 344 rushing yards. I mean, those are similar numbers to what Kyler Murray put up. And Gardner Minshew, because of that draft capital, I feel like it's so much easier to move on from them. It's easy for the Jaguars to move on. It feels like they've kind of committed to this rebuild because they've moved everything. I mean, the defense is going to be a lot of negative game scripts. Minshew should put up good fantasy numbers, but I don't see it as a good NFL season. The biggest thing for me, the takeaway is it's DJ Chark season and it's Chark week. So make sure you guys go. DJ Chark is going to beast this year.
You got some sponsorship for that? Because I feel like that was a planned drop.
I keep putting that one out there on Twitter. All right. Me and DJ have a special connection.
All right. That makes sense then. Got a couple comments, 5-wide Minshew Mania.
He only threw 6 picks last year.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
I completely agree with Anthony on this one. The big sneak 77. Mike just said true, so he's liking these points on there. Commissioner Breeze, what do you think about Gardner Minshew, franchise quarterback?
I do not see him as that. He's a good option, obviously, for fantasy, but the way the Jacksonville Jaguars are positioned going into this season, they're projected to finish last in the division. I think 4 or 5 wins according to the Vegas odds. So I think a full rebuild is in store. You could be looking at potentially a new quarterback, a new starting running back, and whatever. Well, obviously, they're going to need help on defense as well, because they've long been depleted since, Jalen Ramsey and forget the other corner name that was there with him.
AJ Bouye.
Bouye, thank you, was there, a couple of years ago. So I think it's just more so from the Jaguars front office. I'm just looking at this like, okay, how can I put myself in a position to maximize the picks that I would have available going into next year's draft to begin the full rebuild to make our team better. And this is, not a knock on Gardner Minshew, the player. I like him, but I just don't see him as one who is in a position that can lead that team to the, top of that division and, playing in the postseason.
Yeah, I think, there's some good. You guys already noted the touchdown to interception ratio. Good. The rushing ability for fantasy and just for football in general, I think it was the fifth with his legs quarterback. That's good. Completion percentage, yards per attempt, efficiency, up and down. I think with the Jaguars a few years back, like being a team that was winning games, successful, and now they just been regressing and regressing. The best thing that could have happened to them was Gardner Minshew, because it's a fan favorite. Guys are in the stands wearing mustaches. You know, they got glasses on. So did they plan on that? No. Was it perfect for their franchise? Absolutely. This reminds me of, again, I'll go back to playing college soccer. You'd have like the seniors coming into preseason. They're starting, right? A couple of the guys, they're starting. But coach signed some freshmen, right? And it's like, based off of your performance the first like few weeks, halfway through the season, whatever, you're either going to be, or maybe not seniors, maybe juniors, you're either going to be part of the plan or you're not going to be. And it's like a tryout. It reminds me of like a high school, college, whatever the case is, like a tryout. And I know he did good things for them last year, but I can't picture the future with them where they have the ability to bring in a guy that's going to be a difference maker, that they're going to completely buy into, like a Trevor Lawrence. I mean, are they going to be bad enough to potentially draft Trevor Lawrence? Maybe. Do they do so if Gardner Minshew has a great season? Maybe not. If he has a good season, do they? Maybe.
If he have the 101, he has. I mean, he had a horrible year. You know what I mean? No, you can't pass on Trevor Lawrence. He's a generational talent. The way that guy plays, I mean, I feel like it would be absolutely foolish to pass on Trevor Lawrence.
Gardner Minshew, he went 6-6 in his 12 starts last year. If he can win 6 to 7 games, and Jacksonville was bad, they were cleaning house. Similar scenario this year. If he can win 6 or 7 games and maintain a similar turnover ratio, and he didn't turn the ball over a ton, I think he's going to be the guy for a long time in Jacksonville.
All right, yeah, and I mean, if he's successful and he's winning games, I mean that's all you want at the end of the day, right? Think
about what Jay Gruden did with his quarterbacks in Washington, and even Andy Dalton back in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins was a 4th round pick.
Yep. And then you look like, I haven't looked too much into this next class, but even if you have the capital to draft Trevor Lawrence, maybe you shift gears and you're like, nah, I'm going to go Chuba Hubbard or Etienne or Najee Harris, or go to Rondale Moore, to another elite piece, now that you think you have your quarterback, because it's a class of more than just Trevor Lawrence. So very interesting thoughts moving forward for them. Yeah, that's all the topics I have. I know we're past the hour mark here. So just going to wrap things up. Again, what we talk about today, NFL headlines. I think anytime news drops, there's a wide range of reactions. All of you guys are very active on Twitter, so I'm sure every single day you have a huge reaction about something to deal with. So it's always interesting to talk about these things and weigh them out. We'll just go in a circle here. I'll just point you guys out. Drop your maybe your Twitter handle and anything you got coming up for the listeners, because we will have this on iTunes and Anchor and all that, so they won't be able to see your actual @ But Commissioner Breeze, if you want to just let the audience know.
Yes, sure. Again, I'm Commissioner Breeze. You can follow me on Twitter at MCBreeze11. If you guys have any, fantasy football related questions, commissioner related questions, personal, related questions, you can, hit me up in the DM. I'll be more than happy to answer those at my earliest convenience. And outside of that, that's pretty much all I got going on right now.
And I will vouch for that, because I think you and I have had conversations about football, about our families, and just about everything. So I do appreciate that, and I think you're a major asset to the fantasy community for sure. Mike, if you want to drop your handle on what you got going on.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it. Like I said today that fantasy football is like the Coliseum, and Twitter is more like the mob. Everybody is so fickle with things; they change it, and as soon as any kind of news hits, there was major overreactions. But to avoid those overreactions, you guys can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. Hit me up with some, I'm always putting things out there for retweets, answering questions. And the Dynasty Refinery kicks back off again tomorrow. So, look for that. And the Dynasty Dad podcast will be coming out later this week as well.
Very cool. And we got a good comment here. If you don't follow these guys, make sure you do. All great follows. And I definitely agree to that. And again, you're always pumping out not just your content, but you're spreading other people's content as well. And I think that's huge. And I think that shows a lot on your end. Very respectful. And you're a guy that's chatting guys in the comments all the time. I see, you and I have had some conversation in private as well. So again, appreciate you. And Anthony, we'll kick off where we can find you and what you got going on.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. My name is Anthony Cervino. You can follow me at The Real NFL Guru. You can follow my show at the FF Face Off. And I'm kind of doing a little bit of everything going into this season. So just if you follow my Twitter handle, you'll see all my work. I'm always posting content and whatever else I could post.
Yeah, super active as well. And I feel like if I randomly go into Twitter, there's a good chance I see you live talking about something. So I tend to go into those live sessions now that I'm still working from home, and I'll have that to the side and I'll be pounding away at the work. So appreciate that and what you bring with pushing out content yourself and others as well. But yeah, again, this is Nick from P2W Fantasy. 3 great guests on the pod today. We'll have this out on iTunes, Anchor, all that great stuff on YouTube. But thanks again, guys. Really appreciate that. You talking with me tonight and everybody else who tuned in live. Thanks for listening to us talk here. Have a good night, guys.